All right, for this exercise, we're going to focus on ViewState. And ViewState's purpose is to save data for the same current page so that when we refresh the page or redirect to the same page again, we have that data saved for us. So we'll learn how to do that. Now, to this demo, we're just going to have a little text box here with an add button. And I'm going to just add different fruits, so like apples. And I'll hit add. And you'll see number of posts is 1. Item 0 is apples. Now maybe I'll add bananas. And I'll hit add, and you'll see item 2 is bananas, number of posts is 2. We'll add peaches, hit add. Item 3 is peaches, hit grapes, hit add, and you'll see that the list keeps growing and growing and growing, and it keeps track of how many items are here. So our first step is to actually recreate this page in our ASPX file. So what we're going to do is, we've already added a file called myviewstate.aspx, and we have a myviewstate.aspx.cs. And so what we're going to do inside this viewstate file is we're going to drag over, well, first we'll say, we'll type in the text inside the div box, and we'll say add a viewstate item with a colon there. We'll put a text box and a button after this. So drag over a text box. I'm going to call this text box TB item. And then I'll add a button right below it, or right next to it. So for the button, I'm going to call this button btn add. And the text for the button will just be add. Let's add a few break tags underneath. And what we'll do is we'll drag over a list box. All right, so I'm going to switch back to design view, drag over a list box, put it right below, and I'm going to leave the items empty and no data source. So I'm going to leave this unpopulated. So I'll switch back to source, and underneath the list box, I'm going to say number of posts and put a label. So label will be, so this label will be called LBL num posts. Now I'll leave everything else the same. So we're done with the ASP file. Alright, so what we'll do now is, before we go on to the CS file, for that add button, I need to add an event handler. So I'm going to switch back to design, double click on add, and it'll create my btn add click. Now before I populate the add click method, let's start with page load. So what we're going to do is we're going to use page load to manage number of posts, like a little counter. And we'll use add to repopulate the list view. So in page load, first we'll check to see if number of posts even exists for the viewState variable. So we'll say if viewState of num posts is equal to null, then we're going to create a new viewState variable called num posts. So we'll say viewState of num posts then is equal to 0. So we'll initialize it to 0. Otherwise, if it already exists, meaning it's not our first time refreshing, then we'll go ahead and retrieve it. So we'll say int count is equal to, now because viewState num post is a string, we'll have to convert it to an int. So we'll use convert.toInt32 for viewState of num posts. And what we'll do is we'll increment this counter. So we'll say And we'll resave it as ViewState numPost. So we'll say ViewState of numPost is equal to plus plus counter or count. And then we'll populate that label. So we'll say lbl numPost dot text is equal to ViewState of numPost dot toString. All right, so last thing is now that page load is tracking the number of posts, the counter at least, let's switch over to btn add click and actually populate that list view. So we're going to retrieve all the items. So first thing we'll do is we're going to retrieve the count, and we're going to have the first line in the list view be the count. So we'll say ViewState of item. Now we're going to retrieve the count, so item 0 essentially. So lst state vars dot items dot count is equal to tb item dot text. Now it's giving an error for lst state vars, and that's because we forgot to give the name to the list view. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch back to the ASPX file and actually update the name for that list view, because right now it's just saying list view 1. So back to my ViewState, highlighting the so we'll switch to source, and this will be lst state vars. So we have lst state vars. Now if I switch back to the CS file, the error has gone away. So now we can continue on. In fact, I'll go full screen here. So now we have that. We're going to reset. So upon clicking the add, we're going to reset the item, so that the text box item. So tb item dot text is equal to empty string. Now what we're going to do is, now that we have our new item, we want to refresh. We've saved it as the view state. So the first line was this purpose. Just take what's in tb item dot text, save it as the latest view state item under based on count. So item of n-1 or n will be the new text. Then we'll reset the text box. Now we're going to refresh the list view to populate all that information. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to retrieve all of the view state items. All of these view state items are of type state bag. We'll call it state is equal to view state. And then we're going to clear the entire list box. So we'll say lst state vars dot items dot clear. And then we're going to do a for each as we go item by item in the view state. We're going to keep adding to the list box. So for each string key in state.keys, we'll say lst state vars dot items dot add for key plus, and then a colon, and then plus state of key dot toString. Right, so this line of code, basically you're looping item by item in view state, and you're just going to keep adding to the list box. So first you're going to have the key, so item 0, and then you'll have the value, so key value. And at this point we're done. We can actually run this and see what happens. Right. So then in my ViewState, I'm just going to go View in Browser. Alright, so let's try again. With apples, we'll hit add. So there you go, num post is 1, item 0 is apples. Bananas, hit add. Item 2 is bananas. Peaches, add. And grapes. And we hit add and it's there. So there you have it. You have a simple example of how ViewState actually works for the same page.